Hi folks, John Mulhare from Terrachem here, another Crops Watch video. It's a Baltic day at the end of March, and just before the season in terms of fungicides on winter wheat gets up and running, I'm here with Dr. Robert Beattie just to give you a quick overview again of our Innertrek fungicide from last year. So Rob, if you could remind people in your own words just what Innertrek is. It's very successful last year, but a reminder of what exactly the product is.
So as you mentioned, John, our new fungicide, first commercial year last year with it. It's a completely new mode of action for disease control in winter wheat. QII chemistry, the chemical class is called picolinamides, the active ingredient is fenpicoxamid, and the brand name is Inatreq.
So obviously as a new active ingredient, no known cross resistance, so that's very important. In terms of the way growers buy the product, how many brands are out there?
So there's 3 brands out there, being Peacock, Equino and Questar, and they're all available in commercial boxes with azole mix partners.
Grand. And as regards, is there any difference in performance from what we would have seen in the trials last year in the different options?
Generally, we would see from our trials that there's very little difference between any of the commercial box offerings.
Grand. Everybody's aware as we face into this year, it's a year of unprecedented cost of inputs, particularly fertiliser, but the price of grain is obviously very high. A lot of people asking about, can we cut inputs anywhere? With the huge level of investment being made in growing wheat, it stands to reason it has to be protected. What would your advice be on rates for the coming year and stuff like that?
Well, look, it's very hard to give a rate now, but to be honest with you, we've seen from our trial results going from, be it the 75% rate to 100% rate, giving you 0.5 tonnes per hectare over the last 3 years, and that today's grain price is worth significant money. So we know that higher rates pay, so that's what we would be advising.
Yeah, a good point there that your last quarter rate of Innertrek could potentially return 150 euros of wheat, getting another half a tonne per hectare. And again, last year there was so much focus because of partially a varietal issue. Obviously weather played a role in a few imperfect timings, but yellow rust was the topic of conversation last year. Any comments on that for the coming year, how best to manage it?
Well, certainly I suppose disease control in wheat is twofold. Depending on your area, I suppose the septoria is kind of the big one, but yellow rust as well can take up to 50% of your yield. But look, I suppose yellow rust is a little bit different than septoria, as it's more of a program approach, starting with your variety, and if you have a set of variety, it's start early and get on top of it. Whereas with septoria, it's protecting your top 3 leaves.
I suppose it's fair to say that while there have been questions since we lost Bravo about whether or not we put a T0 on for septoria, any risk of yellow rust, a T0 is going to be applicable.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. As regards timing of the product, we know last year, because of its particular strengths and persistence and curativity, the vast majority of Innertrek was actually used at T2. Some of it would have been used at T1. I did some of that myself, particularly thinking yellow rust. Does it matter?
Not really, John. No, it doesn't. In honesty, we are one application per season, and that is for a number of reasons, but I suppose the main one is for an anti-resistance strategy. It's to keep the product working well as long as we can. So the least amount of exposure to the disease, the longer it is going to be working at the levels that it is now. So its main benefits are, as you mentioned, its curativity and its persistence. So it doesn't really matter T1 or T2. As you said, the large majority was used at T2, and I see the massive benefits from it at T2.
We know we're in an era of IPM, that we should only pick a fungicide as the last tool to fight disease, and there's lots of other things we can be using. Is it a fair comment to make that anybody serious about growing wheat should be using Innertrek in the programme this year?
Absolutely, John. Like, we've never seen the level of investment that's going to be in crops coming into spraying them with fungicide that we're going to see this year. And we know from our trial results that there's excellent performance in both yellow rust and septoria disease control from Innertrek. And any grower who's grown winter wheat should seriously consider using it in their programs.
Thanks, Rob. So folks, there's a quick roundup of Innertrek from last year, and probably the most pertinent point to remember perhaps is that what we've seen from the trials over 2 years now is that the average response from going to the 3/4 to full rate was another half a tonne per hectare, which in the current grain market pricing structure, that's 150 quid. So protect your investment this year and hopefully make good returns on your grain.